And coming up on this episode of The Grumpy Gits, we talk to the incredible Mark Tremonti of Alter Bridge and Creed fame about his new project with the Frank Sinatra Band, and we discuss the incredible cause that it's going towards. Also coming up, we get political with Supertanskiii, and we discuss the current government and the effect that their decisions are making on the disabled community on a daily basis. All this and so much more coming up on The Grumpy Gits.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Grumpy Gits, the podcast that, much like our immigration system, will one day break Rwanda.
The Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.
Now, you may notice something different about this week's episode, but don't worry, we've got you covered. That'll be a nice little surprise for later, won't it? Oh yeah. I am joined by two kind of geniuses among the disabled community, bastions of men, and good friends of mine, and don't worry, there's no poetry this week. That did not go over well. Up first, the mastermind, the musician, the Megatron to my Optimus Prime, Duncan Casburn. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's the middle of the Easter holidays, so my decision on having kids about this time of the holidays is where I start to question my sanity. But other than that, doing well.
What's the Easter egg count in your house at the moment?
Oh, it's a nightmare because we can't do chocolate really. And we've said this, but relatives don't necessarily listen. Because chocolate really sets my daughter off. It's just like, it's horrible because you just get mounds of chocolate and it's like you can't eat all that chocolate, no, because you know if she does, it's going to be, Night of the Living Dead for the next 3 days of just... Yeah,
a lot of sugar in one hit.
Exactly. There's something about chocolate. I don't know if it's the caffeine. I don't think it is that. There's something in chocolate that really sets her off more than anything else. So
it's got trace amounts of caffeine.
It does, but
it's either the sugar or maybe the bromine, because that's what kills dogs.
Well, that might be it. Maybe that's it. But there's something in there. Sugar in general is bad, but. Yeah.
Then your weekend just becomes like the movie Train to Busan on repeat. If you haven't seen Train to Busan, either of you two or the audience watching, it's probably my favourite zombie movie of all time. It's a cracker. And speaking of zombies, segue, I'm sorry Chris, it's the best I could do given what we were just talking about. He is the king of the kaijus. If Godzilla were here, he'd F him up. Chris Leasmith, how are you, good sir?
I'm rubbish, mate. I'm shit.
For a change.
Honestly, I did. I thought this week, because I do think about my intros, and I weigh up how I'm feeling, and I tell you what, at the start of this week, I was like, you know what, I am raring to go for this episode. We got some great guests coming up, which we'll obviously say about a bit later. And I thought everything's planned. My questions are thought-provoking and they would cause a riot. But obviously Simon dropped out because he's quite ill.
Well, in fairness, he's in Spain with the flu, so technically he's got the Spanish flu.
Yeah. Well, it's not his fault, but yeah, it was kind of like a stack of cards that just started falling apart.
Mate, don't worry.
Let's get on with the episode.
Look, can I reassure you, I've managed to see... Simon will be here for your question, for that question in particular. We're going to tag it.
Really?
Yep. I've organised it. Just wait. Yep.
We've got it sorted.
Yeah.
We've got it sorted. There we are. The Grumpy Gits, keeping it light, as always. Anyway, that being said, we've just alluded to it. It is our regular opening segment. Some might say my favourite segment. Who says that? I do, because it is my actual favourite segment. Paradox. Ooh. Right, random thought. If the Queen was having a roast dinner and she was having a loin of beef and she knighted it, would it be a sirloin of beef? I'll move on. Chris Leasmith, ridiculous questions. Let's do this.
If animals could talk, would you turn vegetarian? Let's start with Adam.
I mean, it truly depends what they say. Because if they're sort of like agreeable and cool and what have you, then I might. But if the first thing they say is, "Oh, I can talk now, you should go veggie," then no, gonna keep going.
What if it was? What if it was like the pig and Babe?
I mean, that film. You know, some people after they have sex like to quote a film, but they often say things like, "Boom! There goes the dynamite." I once quoted Babe as a joke, and went, "That will do, pig. That will do." And so, yeah, me and that film have a dark history of broken relationships.
It's a miracle you're not married. I don't know how it happened.
I know. How am I so single? Like, one day I'm going to get married, and she's going to find this, and we'll listen to the path of destruction I have left. The trail of anxiety women in my wake, and realise she's made a horrible, horrible mistake. Or a good decision. Who knows? No, I find the pig and Babe annoying. It cheats at sheepdogging.
Okay, you've got a problem.
I know you're something of an expert on dogging.
In particular, sheepdogging.
Sheep.
Make
I'm not even going to ask what that is. No, I don't know.
There we go, Chris. Pick up those pieces.
Duncan, if animals could talk, would you turn vegetarian?
The first thing that came to mind when you asked the question was, my favourite book of all time is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Genius books, all five of them, especially the first three. But there's the scene where they go to the restaurant at the end of the universe, and out comes the mega cow or something it's called, I think. And it's bred to, it introduces itself. And when I recommend my rump, it's particularly good at the moment. I've been eating nothing but grain for the last 3 weeks. And Arthur Dent's there going, "I can't eat that." "Yeah, well, he wants you to." "Yeah, but like it's barbaric." So you'd rather eat something that doesn't want to be eaten and has no choice in it, and yet he wants you to eat him, and it creates this whole paradox, the situation that this thing's talking and therefore he can't eat it, but he's talking and introducing himself to say, I'm here to be eaten, what would you like?" It creates that beautiful paradox in the situation. I don't know that I'd survive if I couldn't, because I live under the apprehension, I honestly believe God buried vegetables for a reason, and it was man in his sinful ways that went digging around and found them. All the cows, all the pigs, all the animals, they were all running around in eyesight. Fruit was hanging from trees. We know what happened then. But yeah, vegetables buried. So I think I'd die.
You would eat them. You'd eat them.
I think I'd have to, otherwise it's me or them.
Okay. Bacon's amazing. Let's just give it up for bacon. Round of applause for bacon in the edit.
Okay, let's move on to question 2. If you were a superhero, which of us would be your sidekick, and what would be their power? Let's start with Duncan this time.
To take the blame. I want my sidekick is purely there to take responsibility. I have to go with you, Chris, on this one. You'd have to be. You're there to take the blame. You're there to just palm off my faux pas and make me look better as a superhero for all the abuse of power that I will inevitably commit.
So my superpower is just to take the blame.
Yeah, it's an important superpower, and it's needed. Do you think Robin was anything? No, Robin did nothing. Robin was purely there so the Batman looked a little bit better.
Oh, Adam, do you want to educate him, or shall I?
You've never sounded more like Rishi Sunak. Robin's really important.
Nightwing.
The Batman canon. Yeah, he's Nightwing.
I understand that.
You can't just write Dick Grayson off as the Fallout Boy of the Batman canon.
But that's in the majority of stuff you see. I appreciate the canon is different, but let's look at the 60s TV series. Let's look at Batman and Robin.
No one in Batman and Robin comes out of it looking good.
No.
That was embarrassing for everyone.
If you need moulded
I've
nipples.
rewatched it. I've rewatched it in the same way I'd watch an Adam Sandler film. And if you watch it with that kind of mentality, it actually is really good.
Yeah. Okay, same question to you, Adam.
Oh, this is like Sophie's Choice, because I'm going to upset one of you.
No, you can choose Simon.
No, not all
It's
guys
like
in
kicking him
wheelchairs.
down.
Not all people in
kicking while he's
wheelchairs
down.
have superpowers. He's just one of the regular ones that can't read minds. I'm going to go with Duncan,
What's his superpower?
and he's going to get like a magic guitar that when he strums it, it shakes the earth and causes earthquakes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm
He
so down
uses
for
sound
that.
waves. He uses sound waves as a weapon.
Love it. I am so there.
His name will be Supersonic.
Oh.
Ugh,
Oh, man.
God.
What about you, man? Come on.
Super,
You asked these questions.
Supersonic,
Ruining my questions by getting along this week. I knew we'd miss Simon.
Supersonic Stratocaster will be his superhero name.
I think I would have... I think I'd have Duncan, but in my head, I've got... do you know Mortal Kombat, Sindel?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's got long hair and she whips. Well, I think that would be Duncan with his beard, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to combine these. I could be destroying the earth with my guitar while I whip people down with my beard.
It could be like Tails from Tails and Sonic, and you could like fly with your beard whipping round really fast.
I was thinking System of a Down.
Oh,
Because one of the guys in that has like a really long plaited beard. Sort of like, and you could have like a song. I'll whip my beard back and forth. I'll whip my beard back and forth. I'll whip my beard back and forth. Yeah, he said
On the
keep
scale-
his wife's name. He said keep his wife's name out his mouth. Said fuck all about his daughter.
Question 3. On the scale of 1 to 4 in the Grumpy Gits, where would you rank yourself in terms of leadership quality? As much as I hate the terminology, in other words, alpha. Let's go with Adam first.
In a bizarre twist of character, I'm going to go 4. Because leadership is hard work, and I can't be asked. I'd just rather say to one of you three, what needs doing, rock on, see you Wednesday. What time? 8 o'clock, see you at 8:15. That's the quiet life I want.
I'm not a leader because I don't want the hassle, alright?
Yeah, exactly. I want all the acclaim with none of the accountability.
That's a
I have no direct comparison to that at all, ever. It's not a podcast. I didn't realise it was a podcast. There was no podcast. No comparison at all. Anyway, what about you, Chris?
Me, I would... See, I'm more of the puppet master rather than the outlier leader. See, I shouldn't really give it away, but you'll notice that, like, Simon will probably say that he's the leader, but you'll notice whenever he comes up with a suggestion, I'll come up with something that slightly changes his mind with a comment, and then he'll go, all right, and we'll do it my way. You see what I mean? Manipulative puppet master sort of grain I've got going on there. I don't want the accountability, because if it does go wrong, I can blame it on Simon. Very evil. Very evil.
he's never going to miss an
In some
episode
circles.
again, is he?
I know. What about you, Duncan?
I'm sort of a mix of both. I don't think. Yeah, I'm not number one. I have my moments, but I'm a collaborator. I always have been. I never do well if I'm in charge of everything. It just goes to shit. But if I'm senior, it's good. But as long as I've got somebody, watching over me and making sure
You need someone to bounce off.
I need someone to bounce
the
off,
right
and I need
ones, yeah.
someone to sort of occasionally pull me up and go, what about this? Oh yeah, I need that. If it's just me, it goes to pot. But if I'm in a,
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair enough.
so I'd say sort of 2 or 3. I think would be my alphaness in that. I'm not really an alpha guy, funnily enough, but people treat me that way because I'm big and I'm bearded and I'm loud and play guitar.
So So humble.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not alpha, but people treat me that way, all right? They see me as the alpha. I don't think of myself
I'm
that
not
way.
the alpha. I just project it. It's just
It's my beard. It's my beard. It's so impressive that I'm the alpha.
It's glorious. It's just...
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've just realised that I've described myself as Dominic Cummings.
As I say, we
By
managed to
satellite
write Simon.
to spanning?
Yeah, we got Simon in for this bit because he is really ill, but he's agreed to come on because this is an important bit to him. So Simon, what is your answer? So you asked the question to Simon, Chris, so he knows.
Sure. On the scale of 1 to 4 in the Grumpy Gits, where would you rank yourself in terms of leadership quality? In other words, alpha status.
Well, okay. I think we can all agree that there's no Grumpy Gits without Simon Sampson. Before I came along, none of this was a thing. You didn't build this city on rock and roll. You built this city on Simon Sampson. I'm here in my house in Spain, surveying all I see, okay? And all I own. And whilst I'm glad you're all along with me for the ride, I think it's safe to say that I'm the alpha, the omega, and and everything in between. And if I have to do a poll on Twitter, I will.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks. Since he's turned ill, he sounds a bit like Jacob Rees-Mogg. Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Simon. That's brilliant.
That would be the build up of mucus and stuff that happens when you. I'm telling you, Chris, it has not been fun. It's been firing it's been firing out of both ends. It's been like an explosion in a Pete Fallout factory.
Oh, thank you, Simon. That was an amazing answer. That was brilliant. And get well soon, mate.
Thank you.
And that's the end of Stupid Questions.
And now a brief news update from our partners, Naidex.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be back on the Grumpy Gits podcast. Thank you very much for having us again. My name's Gordon. I'm the Group Content Manager for Naidex.
Hi, I'm Rosie. I'm Head of Commercial for Naidex. We're really excited to be talking to you today. This is our first sort of snippet of Naidex news, so we can keep you all super up to date with everything that you can expect in July. I know that Gordon in particular has got some pretty exciting news around some main stage speakers, so I'll hand over to Gordon.
Yeah, as Rosie said, we wanted to make sure that we're keeping the audience updated on what's going on and what to expect in Naidex. So I'm delighted to announce 3 of our first main stage speakers. First of all, I'm really excited about this one. We've got James Cracknell, one of Britain's most successful athletes of all time. James will be talking about his own experiences after a major head injury, the stigma caused by hidden disability, and the importance of not being defined by limits placed on you by others. The next speaker, staying in the world of sport, but also politics, is Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson, one of Britain's greatest Paralympic athletes of all time. Tanni is going to be talking about her life in sport and then moving into politics and covering some of the issues that exist for disabled people.
Amazing.
We're also delighted to have the Music Man Project performing as part of the event. As seen at the Royal Albert Hall, the London Palladium, and on TV, David Stanley and his group are going to come and perform a special one-off performance at Naidex. But it's not just about the content. What else can we expect on the show floor, Rosie?
Oh my goodness, so much. One of the things to talk about is our incredibly exciting new feature, which is the Naidex and Disability Horizons Marketplace. So we've been working really hard with the Disability Horizons team to create a part of the event for maybe smaller ticket item products that people can come and walk away with on the day. Independent eating aids, it could be devices that help people get dressed easier. It's shaping up really, really well. We have companies like Active Hands on board already. So we're excited to see how that folds out. Returning once again, we have the TGA test track. Open to absolutely everyone to try out any mobility product on site. It's a bit of a try before you buy type situation.
Fantastic. I know that marketplace is something visitors have been asking for quite a few years now.
Yeah, so many years, and it's something that we've always wanted to deliver, and with the help of Disability Horizons, that's now become possible. So I think that for everyone attending, it's going to be a really special part of the event, and I know that we've got a few exciting things to talk about in the coming weeks, which we can't quite do yet, but we will soon.
Absolutely, we'll be back next time, and we'll have more updates for you then. Of course, you will get to see the Grumpy Gits at the show as well. The registration is open, so if you would like to attend in July, it's the 6th and 7th of July, and please visit naidex.co.uk and you can register there and find out lots more updates. Thanks very much for having us again, guys. Back to you.
Thank you.
On now with our first interview with Mr. Mark Tremonti, one of the members of the band Alterbridge. On this day, I see clearly everything has come to light. You're goddamn right it has. And we sat down with him to talk about his latest project. Duncan, tell us more about it.
Well, originally you were supposed to be there with us, but sadly you couldn't make it. So I had to rope in Josh Reeves, who you may remember from a previous episode of the Grumpy Gits. We interviewed him, and he's a massive Alterbridge fan, a massive Tremonti fan, a massive Creed fan. And this, for me, was a true bucket list moment. If there's anybody who I really wanted to talk to and interview, Mark Tremonti was at the top of my list. So he has just released, or he's releasing in May, an album of Frank Sinatra covers. Talk about left of field. He's doing an album completely comprised of Sinatra covers, and he's actually got to record it with the Sinatra band. And he was kind enough to agree to sit down with us, have a chat, and discuss the purpose of the album and what it's all going toward.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And yeah, I am stoked. This has been a bit of a bucket list moment for me. I get to introduce to you Mr. Mark Tremonti. How are you, Mark?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome, man. It's an absolute pleasure. And of course, joining us as well is Josh. Josh, you may remember, was on a previous episode. We interviewed him about his advocacy work he does for disability. So, hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, good.
And the connection here is that Josh and I actually met outside of an Alterbridge concert in Cardiff. So it was a really nice little segue into doing this interview. So, Mark, you've just done this new album, which is Mark Tremonti Sings Frank Sinatra. What inspired this?
So I've been singing Frank Sinatra for, through Christmases, through my life. And then as about 3 years ago, I just went down the rabbit hole and just absolutely got obsessed with trying to sing like Frank and studied just for fun. I didn't really have any plans for it. And then when my daughter was diagnosed with Down syndrome, I was like, you know what, there was a reason for my obsession and there was a reason for this. So the stars kind of aligned. It's like, you know what, I'm going to record a Frank Sinatra record and do it for charity and raise funds and awareness for Down syndrome.
That's fantastic. I mean, I've seen the pictures online of your daughter. She's absolutely gorgeous. When did you find out about?
Yes.
Oh, look at that. That's awesome. You're showing me up here. My kids are going to be, why don't you have big, huge cardboard cutouts of me in the
They're all over the room. There's another one over there, if you see it.
Oh, you can see it?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So when did you find out about your daughter being diagnosed with Down syndrome?
I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months into our pregnancy. And they just, I think it's about the same time you can find out the sex of the baby, maybe sooner than that. Yeah, it was just one of those moments where, it was scary. I never really had anybody in my life that I had close contact with Down syndrome. So I didn't know what to expect. My wife did. My wife's very close cousin has Down syndrome. And so she wasn't frightened at all. She was just happy to have this blessing and this baby. And once she was born, I'd been smiles ever since.
I mean, that's amazing. My cousin actually has a son with Down syndrome as well, and so it's kind of close to my heart on that front. And my daughter's autistic, and we get that sort of thing. And it's that as you find out about these things, and like you say, you go down the rabbit hole. I spent so much time researching autism to understand it, and thankfully have a lot of autistic friends, funnily enough, who I've got to get that feedback from. Were family helpful in understanding that?
Absolutely. It was helpful in keeping me mentally strong. It was something like I said, I didn't know how life was going to change. When you have a child with any kind of disability, I think you think it's going to be this lonely journey, but it's not. You have these huge support groups. If anything, you're going to meet more friends. You're going to meet more people. The Down syndrome community is huge and very supportive. And I'm proud to be partnered up with NDSS, which is the largest of the, the charities. And when you meet these families, you really just want to help everybody because there is no cure for Down syndrome and there never will be, but there's so many different things that you have to take care of, between speech therapies and physical therapies and occupational therapies. My daughter just had open heart surgery a couple months ago. A lot of folks with Down syndrome have heart issues. She had holes in her heart, which was one of the toughest things I ever had to endure in my life. Preparing for that surgery mentally was the toughest thing I've ever done. But the week after her surgery, the days after her surgery were the best moments of my life because she got through it so quickly. That surgery is so common now, and it's such a, they say this is a simple surgery. Once you get through the chest plate and bypass the heart and all that stuff, sounds like this horrible thing. Yeah. But they say it's very straightforward as far as the surgery goes. So when she got through it and she had a smile on her face after the fact, that was when I told myself I have nothing I could ever complain about again. So
you get that way, don't you? And it's interesting what I hear you saying about the communities that are out there. I liken it to Hogwarts. I've said it a few times. Yeah. It's this sort of world that exists you're not aware of until suddenly you're exposed to it. And you realize it's massive and it's amazing and it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm proud to be a part of it.
With the Frank Sinatra project, how nervous were you when you stepped through that door? Because we saw footage of that on YouTube.
This is something I'm stepping into that feels almost like the first time I stepped into the studio. That first, am I going to be good enough for this producer? Am I going to be good enough for this project?
This is it.
But how nervous were you on that day to obviously be part of that band?
It's funny. Everybody thought I should have been so nervous for that. My friends were like, aren't you terrified? And my buddy who filmed me for the interviews for that, he was like, gosh, this must have been the most intimidating things you've ever done musically. And in my interview, I'm like, no, I'm ready for this. I'm not nervous at all, to be honest with you. I'm excited to do it. And he's like, for the video, let's just say you're nervous because it's going to make people want to, it's going to make the anticipation, better. So I kind of played that up, the nervousness, but I wasn't nervous at all. I was excited. What's somebody going to say? You did a bad job at raising money for charity. You got that to fall back on. I knew it came from a good place. On top of that, I practiced more than I've practiced for anything in my life preparing for this. My son Pearson had got picked up by 2 different soccer teams. So he was doing sometimes 3-hour practices 4 days a week. And his practice was 45 minutes away. So the drive there and back, he had to hear me singing Sinatra. And while I was in the car during COVID, because parents weren't allowed on the soccer field, I'd be sitting there singing Sinatra in the car for 3 hours straight, practicing every nuance of what he did the best of my ability. So I had all the time in the world to practice, to go into the studio. So I was ready.
Because you nailed it. I mean, when hearing Under My Skin, I've said this before, with every Tremonti album, hearing your voice develop has been remarkable because it sort of steps up each time, and you've got better and better and more adventurous, I think, with the vocals and more comfortable with your own voice.
I think when you're a new singer, not a bedroom singer, but a singer professionally, you're kind of want to stay away from your human speaking voice. I think because you're shy with the personality of your voice, you kind of want to color it, Yeah. But I think I've come to peace with my lower register, especially now doing the Frank Sinatra thing, because that's naturally where my voice should be singing is the that lower range.
You didn't have to go to your falsetto, which I know you do when you're writing.
yeah, exactly. But when I'm doing the rock thing, I'm always pushing, I'm always screaming, I'm always like pushing to the very top of my range, which it's hard to keep your control in your natural richness of your voice when you're singing like that. So with the Sinatra thing, I could really use my voice for what it was more comfortable doing, the more comfortable range it is to sing it.
Yeah, and I think that's what shocked me is that hearing you in Tremonti and Out the Bridge, and then hearing you sing Frank Sinatra, I was just mind blown. And I think that seeing all the articles and the media behind it, they were shocked too, and it was just incredible.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a dream come true to be able to do the project, and couldn't be happier.
It must have been awesome actually going in and knowing it's Sinatra's band as well. You had that kind of, that's almost like a kudos, isn't it?
Absolute dream come true. You know, when I first started talking to my manager about this, I'm like, I want to just I want to organize some local musicians. How can I find trumpet, trombone players? How can I find these people around town? He's like, well, my guitar teacher growing up was Dan McIntyre, who toured with Frank Sinatra. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So he's like, let's do the best band we could for this project and get Frank Sinatra's touring guys. And
magic.
And to me, that was just mind blowing. Like, I can't believe I get to play with these guys. And it was definitely an absolute dream come true for me.
So is that like, you compare it to meeting Eddie Van Halen, obviously with Wolfgang and stuff, and I know that you were like, you were scared to sort of rate his guitaring because you didn't.
Yeah, but it's almost out of a completely different world to me. I always thought, I'm like, I could go through life saying, guess what? I got to play with Black Sabbath and Metallica and all these bands that I grew up loving, and but it's so different to say I played with Frank Sinatra's people, because it's just a different era. Frank Sinatra was the first big pop star, the first bing singing star. Bing Crosby and Al Jolson before him were big stars, but Frank Sinatra was, I think, the first person who really had people lined up for blocks and blocks to get into the shows, and people didn't want to leave their seats, so they would just, they would say at the Paramount Theater, women would just piss themselves because they didn't want to leave their seat, so they would just sit in their seat and watch multiple shows. And people, he was the first person that really got people crazy about him. Elvis and the Beatles and everybody else did afterwards, but Sinatra was the first.
I think what I really love as well is it shows another side. It shows another color to who you are as an artist as well. Because people sort of think it's like, you're a rock star, you're a heavy metal guy, you're a guitarist, and that's sort of what you get pigeonholed into.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like the charity almost gave you an excuse to do something that broke away from what's traditionally known.
Absolutely. And the point you brought up about, because you're doing it for charity, you can kind of do something different. That's the purpose behind this organization I'm trying to start.
Yeah.
So Take a Chance for Charity is the organization I'm trying to start that challenges people to do something for charity that nobody would ever see coming. So it's kind of people's get out of jail free card for doing something completely experimental to see if it works for them, or to have just fun. It could be funny. It could be great. It could be anywhere in between.
Oh, I've got a challenge to put out there on this then.
Yeah.
Let's get Buble doing Alter Bridge and Tremonti and do it like
Buble doing some hard rock would be amazing. I would love to hear it.
I want Miles to do Elvis Presley. I don't want his. I just want Miles to do Elvis Presley or the Beatles. Maybe.
That'll be amazing. Miles would pull it off. Miles can pull off anything, so he'd kill it.
And with the Frank Sinatra launch party now, is that a one-off thing?
We have that scheduled on the 14th planned. We're going to film the whole thing.
Excellent.
Just because it's the first time we're doing it, we don't know what we'll do with it. We don't know if it will turn out great or what, but we're definitely going to capture it. And then maybe sometime after our summer tours with Tremonti, we'll schedule some shows.
How can people get involved? You talked just briefly there about the charity and pushing people out of their comfort zones to do stuff that they wouldn't do. How can people get involved with that?
So first of all, if you go to the site, the TremontiSingsSinatra.org, you can read the story behind it. You can contact my management if you want to get into the project of Taking a Chance for Charity. And I just spoke to my manager yesterday. I'm like, we need to come up with something that we put online or have a card in person that says, here's how you can take a chance for charity. Use this link, use these hashtags, post your videos or whatever it is, anybody with a platform. So keep an eye on our site. We're going to try to come up with some concise, nice, straightforward way of doing that. Right now, I'm speaking to a bunch of people about doing this, and it can be anything. You could record a song, you can paint a painting, you can do a dance, whatever it is to raise money for charity. But it just has to be something that the people who know what you do would not see coming. as much as possible. And then we can get the links for NDSS up on the site, so you can do the straight donate now button on there, which will keep track of all the money we've raised through Take a Chance for Charity, we've raised a lot of money so far. I think we're somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 that we've raised so far. So it's just been great. And then the show was sold out, which is another, just the ticket sales and the show raised a ton of money. So we're going to have silent auctions, things that we put up. It's just so exciting to see the direct cause and effect when you meet the families and the folks that could use a little help.
Something I've said about the disability community in particular, I think I've yet to meet somebody who's got involved with disability community at some level who hasn't then tried to better other people's lives as a result. There seems to be this real sense of pay it forward.
Because you love your children. And when you see your children have any kind of issue that would hold them back, you don't want any other families to ever. My wife was just saying, she's lucky enough to be able to stay at home with our daughter and take her to physical therapy and take her to speech therapy and take her to all these things that she does. And every day she has things, because we want to make her get past these hurdles. Imagine a mother and a father who don't have the day off to do that, and they have to work all the time, and they have to pay for sitters, and you have to find special sitters who might not.
It.
And if you're not able to take your child to these therapies, they're going to suffer. They're not going to. Sometimes it takes a child with Down syndrome 3 years to say their first word. We're still trying our best to have Stella crawl. Stella is over a year old now, and we're trying to still get her to crawl. She sits up and she smiles and she's happy as can be. But the little milestones that you're used to, you really have to work hard to get them to recognize, hi, this is dad and this is mom and this is more. Sign language is a big thing. My wife will come in if I'm feeding my daughter, and she's like, you better be using more food. You better be saying that with the mom and dads, and all the sign language is a big thing that we have to teach her. We have sign language shows on TV all day long because, kids with Down syndrome have a tough time sometimes speaking, at a young age. Like I said, imagine a family who didn't have the ability to give their child that extra care.
I see it all the time, and the autism community and the people who are, parents to autistic kids and stuff like that. And you see it so often, it's the same thing. The milestones are often, you have to relearn parenting from the ground up almost, because it's a completely different ball game that you're playing. But you also start to take, I think, pleasure in things that people would miss in other times.
Oh, yeah.
So when that first word comes, it's that much more special.
Absolutely. Me now, I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I saw how fast my older kids grew up.
Yeah.
So I cherish every second now at this age, because she's just adorable, and you just, when I have to go on tour, this last tour was 5 weeks long, and I started in Florida, so I didn't have to leave for like the first week. And then I flew home for her birthday, but then there was 2.5 weeks where I didn't see her. And when I got home, she was like, who is this man?
Stranger.
And then the next day we were back on track. But you cherish when you have a child grow up, and then you have a new baby that means those many years later, you really appreciate every step of the way. And like you said, especially for a child that might develop a little slower, those milestones mean so much more.
You said earlier in the interview, you were talking about the fact that you kind of had to process it, and mentally, for your mental health, there was that sort of stepping stone that you had to take there. And the music industry is a really tough place mental health wise. Anyway, we've seen that with Taylor Hawkins recently, and I don't know the full story there, but we saw it with Chester Bennington, we've seen it with Chris Cornell, we've seen it with so many people that it becomes overwhelming. How do you manage that? And especially when you're dealing with those extra things that perhaps people don't appreciate the mental health impact it can have.
It's just trying to stay positive all the time. And I think everybody, well, actually not everybody. I think it seems like half the people in the world are carefree and the other half are full of anxiety. And the people that are carefree don't understand the people who have anxiety. Yeah. And the people who have anxiety have, when they say, I feel this way or that way, the people without the anxiety is like, just snap out of it. It's not that easy. My family, my mother, my brothers, all of us have had anxiety, and it's just something I've had to deal with personally. That's why when I found out our daughter had Down syndrome, of course, being an anxious person, I started thinking all these thoughts, what if she doesn't reach her full potential? What if she has all these health concerns? What ifs? But the moment she was born, all that changed. It's like I snapped out of it until she had the heart, the heart surgery and all that. Since she's had the heart surgery, when I hold her, I don't think of anything but look at my beautiful, perfect daughter.
Yeah.
So it completely changes, once you have that daughter or son that you absolutely love, you don't go through your days thinking of any negativities that come along with any kind of disabilities. It's just you're sitting there with someone you love. So it's that anxiety completely disappeared. It's just I get to spend this blessed time with my loved one. Here's the CD for the shelf. I just got this in
wicked
2 days ago. So first copies are in of the CD. That the record hasn't been creating LPs right now is very difficult with everything else in the world. All the supply has gone down. It's really hard to get records pressed. So I think the first pressings of this record are, I don't know if they've already sold through or not, but it's probably going to take us a little while to get the next batch of them, which is kind of a shame. But we're doing our best to produce them as fast as we can.
But people can get streaming it on Spotify. They can get it on Apple Music and everywhere else as well, can't they?
I think so. Yeah, I guess I think it's already up on. I do Apple Music. I think it's already up on Apple Music.
I've heard it on Spotify, so I've been listening to it under my skin. Do check it out, guys. It is phenomenal and totally unexpected. And I think what's totally unexpected is that it's amazing. It is.
Thank you very much. And it reminded me of Apple Music. One of our good friends there was nice enough to take Under My Skin and put it on the front page of the New Rock thing. Which the good thing about when you do a project like this for charity, people kind of break the rules for you. They want to do something. If they see it's for a good reason, a good cause, they'll go outside the box for you. And Apple Music did that for us. And I think my manager's talking to the folks at Walmart about stocking more of the records than they usually would, and people just breaking the rules because it's for charity. And it's awesome to see people being open-minded and having a heart and
I love that too, because there's this thing, and there's a show here called The Last Leg, and one of the things that the guys on this often say is that when you see the crap going on in the world and what an awful place it is at the moment, stop and look at the wonderful good things that are happening beside it. So when you look at Ukraine at the moment, look at the people going in and helping, look at the people providing aid.
Yeah.
When and you see something like this, it's those people want to be good, people want to do good things, and there's an opportunity there. They grab it. They do.
Oh yeah, those bad things bring the best out of people sometimes. And it's funny you bring up Ukraine. I've been World Down Syndrome Awareness Day was March 21st, and so I wore my blue and yellow, and I didn't realize that everybody's flying blue and yellow these days because of Ukraine. It's the same as Down syndrome's colors are blue and yellow. So when I'm wearing my blue and yellow, I get to support both causes at the same time.
Mark, I can't thank you enough for joining us, man. And like I say, it's a bit of a bucket list thing getting to speak to you like this. But more so, it's wonderful what you're doing and seeing that connection. As I say, it's close to my heart with my family, but also I think for any parents out there who've got kids that have extra needs in any way, it's inspiring to see there's more we can be doing. And I really want to thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and keep up the good work as well. So I'm just looking forward to hearing out the record.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to see you guys. Yeah, and hopefully we see you in June, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Guys, we'll put links in the description to the project so that you can go through. There will be, as Mark said, there will be donation points to click on there that you can go and support the National Down Syndrome Society in the States, and go check out the song. It is unbelievably good. More than that, it's just for a great cause. So get on it. I'll hand over to the guys back on the podcast, and we'll see you back there. And if you'd like to hear the rest of that interview, you can head on over to PDA Dad UK now, where you'll be able to check out the full interview with Mark Tremonti.
And you know what? I thought you'd both fanboy a lot more than that. I'm proud of you both. Proud of you both. I'd have lost my shit. So yeah, that was Mark Tremonti. And it wouldn't be an episode of The Grumpy Gits without us delving into the deep, murky waters of politics. So in a bid to keep it light, funny, entertaining, we roped in Twitter's Supertanskiii to talk to us. Thank you, us from the past. And we are joined now by political commentator, TikTok genius, and Twitter warrior, who once referred to Will Quint MP as a hamster in a man costume. It's Supertanskiii! Hooray!
Hello, thanks for having me.
We've got some questions because obviously me and Adam, we know a little bit about politics, but probably nowhere near your level. So we wanted to sort of delve into your brains and see what you think. With 12 years of a Conservative government, which action has caused the most damage to the disabled community?
That's hard because when I was kind of looking into this and kind of researching it, which was a miserable affair, it's like a scroll. There's so many to choose from and it's hard to pick one. And also there is the part of it that as an able-bodied person, I have a kind of hidden disability, which is PTSD, but as someone that's able-bodied, I don't feel like I'm as well-versed almost to answer that holistically. But I would say that one of the worst things actually is quite recent, which was the do not resuscitate orders that were put onto people with learning disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was, it was a shocking example of discrimination. And people were saying that it led to a lot of avoidable deaths. But then there was also, coupled with that, the fact that they did not bump up people with learning disabilities to the top of the vaccination list. So their choice was die during the pandemic, essentially. It was like, if you go into hospital with this and need help, you're probably going to die because they're putting, for whatever mad reason, that on it. And also there's the fact there's a lot of people in care homes, obviously, that have learning disabilities. So, and care homes were like the killing fields of COVID, weren't they? And then you've got the fact that even if they do make it through, then they're not going to be top of the list for that. So I'd said that was probably one of the most egregious examples I could find, but there are many more.
Didn't Matt Hancock, the then Health Secretary, didn't he have a learning disability? I bet there wasn't a DNR on his medical records.
I didn't know that he had a learning disability.
He's heavily dyslexic.
Yeah.
Is he? Oh, right. I didn't know that. Shit. Well, he should have probably been a bit more careful kissing his aides, shouldn't he, if that was the case?
Well, the cat's away, the mice will play, and Matt Hancock went there, fluck away.
But no, it's just like unbelievable levels of discrimination. When you look through the record during the Conservative Party's tenure of hell, then you get onto things like the personal independent payments, which replaced the disability living allowance. I mean, the terrible kind of parameters they've got, the delays, the way that they assess cases, the fact that loads of people that should have it didn't get it. And then you've got austerity, which was obviously, what was it? I think it was 130,000 preventable deaths. Obviously, people with disability are going to fall into that in a big way. Then there was the stealth cut that they implemented, which breached their own manifesto, which was like £70 million worth of stealth cuts because they said that they would change the way that PIP was done. They didn't. They refused to. And they announced that on the International Day for Disabled People. Wow. They've been accused of violating human rights. They were investigated by the UN. So it's a damning record.
Is there anything they actually got right for the disabled? Nothing at all.
No.
Anything you can think of, Adam?
No, even when they had the vote about should MPs be allowed to vote remotely, and MPs being allowed to vote remotely would have been really helpful for MPs with disabilities or who are vulnerable and shielding. You know who voted against it? Justin Tomlinson, the then Minister for the State of Disabled People.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's just head in your hand stuff, isn't it? Thrown into that, the fact that the amount of disabled people living in poverty has increased by 1 million since they came into power. So it's now sitting at 3.8 million people. The way I look at it, it almost feels like they're just trying to kill disabled people, to be honest with you. It just feels like that's what they want to do, is just kill people off that aren't people that can make the money or big corporations. It sounds like a heavy thing to say, but I can't draw any other conclusion besides that.
It's a heavy one. Even when I was looking at the DNR thing that we've just discussed, I looked upon that and I was like, how close can they get to eugenics before someone actually says this feels a bit like eugenics?
The thing that I actually wrote, because I keep notes religiously to help my mind focus, but I just literally wrote in capital letters eugenics next to it, because that's essentially what it was. I mean, that's a big part of what the whole herd immunity was, wasn't it? It was like survival of the fittest. If you can't make it through this, then that's it. Tough shit, really, isn't it? I think a reality that a lot of people struggle with, because I don't think people can comprehend in their minds how bad this is and has been. So they go, oh, he's doing his best, isn't it? You know, it's like they're like rocking backwards and forwards, reassuring themselves he's doing his best.
Yeah.
No, he's not. None of them have. They've not even tried.
You got Brexit done.
Doesn't this speak volumes about us as a nation? I mean, we voted them in. Does this actually say how we feel as a majority about the less fortunate, the disabled, the poor? Does it say what we feel, or have the Tories done enough to put up a smoke screen so it doesn't look that way?
That's a tough question with a lot of answers, because we haven't actually, as a majority in this country, actually voted in the Conservatives. Broadly
I suppose we're
speaking,
first past the post, yeah.
The problem is our voting system, and we need electoral reform, but we're not going to get that under a Conservative party. No way. They do everything they can to maintain power. This is why tactical voting is so important, and this is why people need to kind of register. There's like 30 plus million people, I think, that didn't even vote in the last election. And when you combine the kind of what are more left-wing, moderate, liberal parties, they outweigh the Conservative votes. It's just that our voting system, the only other place that's got our voting system is essentially a dictatorship in Europe. So, you know, when that's your reality, this is why tactical voting is so important. But then there was a news report released about the new bill that they're bringing in for electoral reform, which is going to disenfranchise 2 million people, which is bringing in the voter ID when we don't need it. So few cases of voter fraud. And so they're throwing everything they've got at the wall to maintain power. They've got the money, they've got the media on their side. You know, the only thing that we can do is use our vote tactically to get them out.
The Chancellor obviously released the budget a little while back. Was there absolutely anything in there that helped the poor, less fortunate, the disabled?
Again, in a word, no. I mean, Mr. Sunak, whose wife's worth more than the Queen, wouldn't have a clue about how people live day to day anyway, I don't think. But no, it was a deeply cynical budget. They had the spare money in the coffers to reverse the NI tax. It is a tax, the NI increase. They have the money to do that. They had more than they anticipated. So what they're doing is plunging people into poverty at the same time as their failures to regulate the energy companies, which is, again, them dropping the ball on that. All they're doing is essentially propping up multi-billion-pound corporations as usual.
You're a Labour voter. How will things change, in your opinion, if Labour do come to power?
I'm not Mystic Meg or Mystic Met in the case of Cressida Dick, but Labour don't show all their cards prior to an election. I mean, the conferences are when they release the vast majority of their policy. They gave us a little bit of an indication about how they might support people with mental health conditions at the conference. What they're pledging is to make mental health treatment available in less than a month, which would be a huge help, like recruiting 8,500 staff, putting community hubs in place, supporting kids in schools, because obviously the Tories took away Sure Start, which was designed to help kids disadvantaged areas. They took that all away. So, and again, CAMS has been widely condemned for letting kids down with mental health conditions. So they've got a fully costed plan for mental health. In terms of wider impact on disability or disability policy, there's not an awful amount that's been kind of elaborated on by them, but they are the party of supporting public services and funding the NHS. So I can imagine that they would pump, if they're able to pump money, if Johnson hasn't left the country literally aflame, then I imagine they'd do that. But broadly speaking, Labour governments have brought in more progressive policy to help people, and that's what's lacking under the Tories. What a lot of people with disability want is to live with dignity and independently. They don't want to be treated like lesser members of society. They want to do their bit if they can. My family, I grew up very poor, like in poverty, absolute poverty, and the Labour government coming in gave my family a leg up to be, helped my dad and my mum into work. I had support at school. I had a better shot at school. Obviously, it was the education system probably wasn't as progressive as it is now.
There's a lot on Twitter at the moment. 2013 Guardian article featuring Rachel Reeves. I'm sure you've seen it. Now, I have. A lot of Starmer's opponents, whether it be socialists or it could be the Tories, have pointed out that we would probably be worse off with Rachel Reeves as a chancellor. What's your opinions on that?
Well, I think it's mad. The headline is Labour will be tougher on benefits, isn't it? That's the headline. That's the main feature of that. And the thing is, that was 2013. If you actually read the article, you will see that she said that if you can, you should work, but then there would also be greater opportunities for work, and that they would cancel the bedroom tax, and the new opportunities they would make for people to get into work would come from reinstating a tax on bankers' bonuses. So the problem is, the broad problem that we have nowadays is people read headlines, they take the buzzword, that's their takeaway from it, is that, oh, she said this, like she's, but there's nothing, I don't think there's anything that Labour could probably do right now that could be worse than what we have in place, because they're going to get rid of the universal credit system if they come in. They're going to get rid of it. They're going to replace it because it's appalling. But it's kind of a metaphor for our times, isn't it? The fact that people literally just look at a little bit of text as the header, form an opinion based on that, and just don't read the rest of it. Oh, if I thought Rachel Reeves was going to ruin us, I would say it, but I honestly don't think she is.
No one does long-form conversation or research anymore. And it's all down to this 3-word catchphrase, Prime Minister, can I get Brexit done? Putin must fail. And the amount of people that when Boris said Putin must fail went, yeah, he must. Like they hadn't, they couldn't get there on their own.
Obviously.
Yeah. Like before he said that, they were like, good luck to him. Just watching the news with War by Boys to Men playing in the background, sending thoughts and prayers to Ukraine. What does Starmer need to do to win?
I was thinking about this just before we started this podcast, because I think I'm eternally thinking of politics. The Tories have put them in quite a position because there's this whole war on wokeness at the moment, isn't there? Which is their latest culture war. First of all, they came for people of colour, rewrote a report into racism, did all of that stuff. Now they're doing the war on woke, which is essentially waging a war on a very vulnerable group of people, which is kind of the LGBT community. And the problem is they can go to the wall on it. They can say the worst possible thing ever because their voter base are quite possibly, in many respects, quite reactionary. They're still believing that Brexit rhetoric. Now, because Labour are more considered, and they have to be because they're representing these people, it's hard for them to take a hard line on it. It's quite hard for them to take a hard line on it. So I think and not on this topic, but generally speaking, I think he needs to show a little bit more humour. He needs to be a bit more humorous and approachable in the way that he comes across, because he's up against a charismatic. So you've got to up your charisma levels a bit. He's got to really sell confidently what he is selling, the policy that will help people. I mean, their new catchphrase, I think, is on your side. So they're having to adopt a kind of similar approach to the Conservatives with the 3-word tagline, because psychologically it sticks in people's heads.
I like him. I find him remarkably intelligent, highly forensic, but at times a bit weak. And he could have gone into the kill so many more times than he has done. Though granted, he is under the clutch of nonsensical bureaucracy and policies that exist in politics when you can't call a liar because of some draconian Erskine-made poppycock.
Yeah,
I don't think he wants to jump in the mud with him. I think he wants to have one foot in the mud with Johnson while keeping the other foot clean. So I don't think he wants to go down to his level. I do think he's done an excellent job of basically giving the Tories enough rope to hang themselves.
I mean, if you look at how he's laying traps.
Yeah.
He's all the time he's laying traps. And I totally agree with you. I like him. And when you've got people kind of like denouncing a human rights lawyer, you know the world's gone mental. You know the world is fucked.
Yeah.
Because he is someone that has received a knighthood. They're like, oh, he's received a knighthood. Yeah, for pro bono work, to get rid of the death penalty. Like it's unpaid voluntary work that he's got that for. And he's a self-made guy, working class, worked his way up. How's that not something to admire in someone? But the problem is he's against someone that's kind of created a post-truth state. So it's like wrestling jelly, because truth is starting to deliberately lose its importance because of Johnson.
Yeah, and it's all kind of, oh, well, that's my opinion, or that's how I interpret it now or then, or what have you. Like this whole, I didn't know it was a party thing. It's just utter drivel. I didn't know it was a church. I thought it was my house. That's why I was masturbating profusely. I thought it was because I've got the same wallpaper at my house, which I now realise this isn't.
Stained glass windows. We need change, and we deserve change, and we can't afford another term. Punishing policy towards the disabled, appalling letdowns in terms of mental health, disgusting behaviour towards asylum seekers and the vulnerable that are fleeing war zones. And then now they are literally starving and freezing kids in this country. It's going fully Oliver. And if people aren't going to, if the taxes are the final straw, I really hope they are. But then they've also showing that they've got a plan to whip up, to do a cut just before an election.
There are a great many socialists who aren't happy with the current leadership in the Labour Party. Do you think they've got a case to be unhappy?
Probably some, and I'm being very fair here. The worst abuse I've faced online has been from people with socialist in their bio, and I'm talking doxing, threats, etc. Some people, it's reasonable, because there have been a few people that have been expelled needlessly, I would say, but then that's a handful. That's quite rare. Most of the people that have been expelled have been actively working against the party interests. And why are you going to keep people on your team that are working against you? We need a united front moving forward. But then there's also people that are putting, I guess, political purity before kids starving and going cold in this country. And generally, to me, that smacks of privilege, because those kids can't eat your principles. Those kids, they're not, your principles won't keep them warm at night as they're, huddled around the bloody fire. So I think what we all need to do ultimately is unite against the common enemy. And if someone's not willing to vote tactically or vote for the biggest opposition in their area, if it happens to be Labour and they're not happy with Labour necessarily because Labour doesn't fit their, perfect vision of what a party should look like, then I lose all respect for them, because they're just doing the Tories' job for them.
Aid on Twitter made a great point today. He has this way with words where he can stay calm, which I kind of lose my rag quite quickly. He put across the point to, and I think it was directed to socialists who weren't happy with Keir Starmer, that look, we get Labour in power, and if it isn't working for all of us, then we can change from within, which that's just pure common sense to me.
So the beauty of tactical voting is, if the people that you get in don't actually toe the line in terms of what you want, you can just use your tactical vote again to get them out. But there is a huge call in Labour, 80% of the membership, they want a change to our voting system. So if they don't put it in, then you can send them a really strong message with tactical voting.
There we go. Well, Tan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. If people want to find you, follow you, learn more about you, how can they do that?
they can go on TikTok. It's Supertanskiii 3 Eyes. And they can also find me on Twitter. And I will have the podcast coming out soon, which is called Dystopia Warnings. So they'll be able to find me on there.
And we'll put all of that down below and in the video description. So go give Tana a follow. She's great.
And if you'd like to hear the rest of that interview, you can head on over now to PDA Dad UK, where the interview will be there in full. Link will be in the description.
No, I can appreciate that was a little bit one-sided. So in the interest of fairness and balance, so that Noreen Dorries doesn't try and privatise our podcast, does anyone have anything to say in defence of the Conservatives? Nope, me neither. Let's all move on.
You know what? Having watched that back, and what I found, 'cause I at first I was feeling really, wow, this is very strongly Labour-driven, isn't it? But the more I listened to it, the more it just, the whole tactical side, voting side of things really makes sense. Whatever your political leanings are, what the Tories are currently doing to the disabled community is wrong and borderline illegal, if not illegal, in my opinion. And this whole thing is, something has to be done to change things, and that's the end of it, really.
I just want to, because obviously I did the interview with Adam, I just want to point out to the viewers that it wasn't strictly pro-Labour. It was strictly get the Tories out.
Yeah, that's
what it was. And that's the reason why the promotion of tactical voting was put forward. It wasn't our Lord and Saviour, Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, look at the whole game board here. We've got to use this to get these out. The criminals, they are literally killing people.
That's it.
And what I enjoyed most about the interview is if she had the things she was saying, they were backed up. They were backed up with facts and figures. So it wasn't a case of, good morning Britain, but I'll just throw a blanket statement with no substance to it whatsoever and gets disproven on Twitter within 30 seconds of it airing.
Yeah.
This was factually correct, and it really, really did speak volumes, for me personally anyway.
That's what I came away from it. It was, in the end, whatever my political leanings, what's happening is wrong. And I mean, the news this week just shows how really corrupt what's taking place is, I think. And it just goes to highlight the importance of what that's all about.
The problem with facts and figures is you have to do something with them. And we're at a point now where we can't just write it off as woke feeling. So we have to look at the evidence set before us and the man stood before us and ask some very direct questions. And I think this is the end now.
Yeah.
I don't see how this can carry on. And it gets to the point where what does Boris Johnson need to do for even the staunchest Conservative to say, yeah, I'm done?
Yeah.
How much more heavy lifting can get Brexit done do?
It's getting silly now, and I think it has worn thin on just the general public, because not everybody's into politics.
No.
But I think the general public, what the Tories have done is they've hung themselves. Labour have given them enough rope to hang themselves, and they've done that because the worst mistake they possibly could have done is hitting the electorate in their own pocket.
Yeah.
And when, obviously, energy prices, gas, council tax, everything is going up, inflation at all-time highs, one way to lose voters is take money out their pocket.
So there we go. That was your heavy segment for the show, but it's, again, a really important discussion. And again, to reiterate, this isn't a pro-Labour rant. It's just looking at the disability landscape. How did we get here, and who got us here? And we don't throw accusations, we hold up mirrors. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Grumpy Gits. It's been a long one. We had 2 cracking interviews, some ridiculous questions, some rather rather nice, gonna say animation that I got no doubt I'll get a phone call about once this goes out. He doesn't watch it, it'll be fine. Someone else will tell him. Who cares? Another battle for another day. And so yeah, on behalf of myself, Adam Pearson, and my good friends Duncan Casburn and Chris Leasmith, we have been the Grumpy Gits, and we will see you on the next one. Mwah.